Throughout the governor's race, Republican Charlie Baker has showcased his sensitive side, but a mournful moment in a recent debate became a major headache for Baker and sparked a media fact-checking frenzy that may not be over yet. Adam Riley has more.
I may not make it through this story.
It was a key moment in Tuesday's gubernatorial debate. Asked about the last time he cried, Republican candidate Charlie Baker recalled a meeting with a hulking, tearful New Bedford fisherman.
And he pointed to these two boys on the boat, and he said, "Those are my sons." And he said, they were both spectacular football players at New Bedford High School who were given college scholarships to go play football. And I told him no. I said, you're going to be fishermen. And I ruined their lives.
At first, the media asked how voters would respond to Baker's misty-eyed moment. But then the story shifted.
Turns out the story's old, not from this campaign.
And it wasn't just the timing of Baker's tale that was questionable. The New Bedford Standard-Times says it can't find a family that fits Baker's description. At a campaign stop yesterday, Baker stood by his anecdote.
Yeah, I mean, there may be a detail or two that I got wrong, but I certainly, obviously the image and the message from him has stayed with me for a long period of time.
Now his campaign says the fisherman might not have been from New Bedford and that his sons might not have turned down football scholarships. Meanwhile, the Boston Globe found a fisherman who may have inspired Baker's tale, but he wouldn't comment. How this plays out depends on whether the press keeps fishing for details.
I don't personally think this is going to hurt him at all in his gubernatorial aspirations, but I think it's interesting when you start really parsing anything. When you start parsing policy, when you start parsing anecdotes, things break down in a way. Somebody did a whole thing today interviewing some memory guy, and it's the old game, what do you remember from a moment? And memories vary wildly, although he's been telling this story for 5 years, so you think he would have honed it by now. So the fact that it may not have been in New Bedford, it may not have been, it starts to feel more embellished than a memory.
Well, I think that in addition to the fact that he's been telling it for 5 years, the fact that the detail and the sort of performance of the recollection of the debate was so luxurious. He talked about this mountain of a man who was soaked through with sweat and salt water, and about hugging him and how it was like hugging a rock. And we saw his gestures, very sort of performatively sad. I don't know how much of an impact this would have had, especially if Mayor Menino had not passed away when he did. I actually thought the story would fade away a little more than it has, but I feel like the impact has been blunted. You're right that this happens with other politicians. Remember Hillary Clinton saying she'd been under sniper fire flying into Sarajevo, when it turned out she hadn't. I'm inclined to believe with Charlie Baker and with Hillary Clinton and with other people like this that it's not. My tendency is to think it's not intentional embellishment or misleading, but they cobble together one or two things that may have occurred and sort of fuse them into a memory that makes sense and feels true. I mean, I think I do that with stuff I remember from high school or college. So it doesn't surprise me. I do think it's awkward.
Well, just because the media hasn't found the fisherman yet doesn't mean that it's not largely true. And what we're seeing here is an attempt to try to prove a negative. And you can't prove a negative.
David Bernstein, our former colleague, proved that Mitt Romney didn't march with Martin Luther King. George Romney, his father.
You're correct, but boy, that took a lot of work to prove that, and there was documentary evidence that he could point to. I don't think there's any question that Charlie Baker believes this. He might have messed up a few details. I think that's as far as this goes.
Well, for me, I have to take a different stand on it because I believed it hook, line, and sinker in the moment, okay? So for him to say, the campaign, that says to me now. So I thought he was experiencing it now. Now, let me just say, it would have been okay if he said, every time I think about this, and I've thought about it and spoken about it for 5 years, I could have gone with that. But that's not what he said. He said, the campaign leading me to believe it's now, and it's fresh now. And I expect to find the fisherman with the two college kids. I'm sorry. I think those details need to be around. Maybe it's not in New Bedford, maybe it's not here, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I can even go with that. But the central facts and the moment, I need for that to be right, for me not to feel like I was made to believe a false moment, and I believed it.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, Dan, because I think what we're doing is trying to find out, well, is Charlie Baker lying? I mean, that's essentially what the press is trying to do. And to me, a story about a fisherman that was, as you point out, Callie, in 2010 or 2009, not 6 months ago. You meet 1 million people on the campaign trail. I mean, Marty Walsh was talking about that today when he was on the radio with Jim Browdy and me. And it's not like he made up a fact on a resume or lied about his, service in the military or something like that. It's who knows what was really going on there. But I don't think. I think we can't get carried away to turn him into a liar over this. That's my point.
I got to say, though, I'm kind of stunned to hear you guys say that we can't try to prove a negative. I mean, I fail to see how looking to see if Baker's story holds up is anything but legit journalism. And the fact that the Baker campaign, in the course of this being reported out, has said, well, okay, maybe it wasn't a New Bedford fisherman, and maybe his kids didn't have scholarships, and maybe they didn't play football. It's not that the campaign is hewing to what he originally said and saying, nope, it happened, Charlie stands by it. They are backing away because it's being reported critically. The press is doing its job here, I think.
And I think
the press is doing its job.
And I think the issue is about trust. And if right now we're talking about people in this entire nation who are sick to death of representatives who lead them down a path, who are not honest with them about small and big things. So when you get to a point where this is a moment of trust, or I felt I was in a moment of trust with him, I don't want that messed up by some details that he could have made clear for me. Not now, maybe not this guy, but these central things are important to me. I think that's a big deal. And I don't think it's trying to suggest that he's lying, but it does suggest that when you have a bond or you have put that out there for people to connect with you in that way, then I want that all to be real. Now, however you take that now I'm more suspicious. Don't cry on here. Now I'm like, yeah, right, Marjorie. Yeah, you're crying.